For this problem you see here, please do not write any code. I want you to solve it mentally. Give yourself 10 seconds. Actually, I'm going to start the timer. Read the problem description, give yourself 10 seconds. And all I want you to do is mentally try to solve it, but note down every thought you have. You can note down those thoughts in the comments, like in the order they arrived. Here is what we're trying to do. Essentially, we're trying to investigate what's going on in your brain. I'll dive into the details here, but you need to write those thoughts down. Here's an example: input and expected output, to see if it helps you. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So for any thought you had, please note it down in the comments. It doesn't matter if you're able to solve the problem. We're not actually trying to solve the problem. We're trying to walk through a system that helps you optimize your learning and retain what you learned, and also allows you to apply what you've learned in unfamiliar scenarios. So many things here. So essentially, something's going on in your brain. When you have thoughts that are primed, for example, you've read a problem statement, so certain thoughts are primed, given a string consisting of a sequence of one or more zeros followed by one or more ones, you need to return the index of the first occurrence of one. So we know we need to return the index. We have some examples here. So thoughts are firing in your brain. And the thing about the human brain is thoughts trigger other thoughts, because there's this principle, Hebb's law: neurons that fire together wire together. Now, concepts, ideas, things you've learned are encoded in neurons. We're not going to dive into like nerdy neuroscience details. We're going to simplify things. So each of these, I guess, nodes or spheres you see, you can think of them as thoughts or representation of concepts or ideas you have in your brain. And what would happen is when you have certain thoughts, other thoughts fire as well. And you can think of collisions happening in the sense that, this thought fires, and then it leads to another thought firing, and the chain continues, right? The question is, do enough thoughts fire that you get all the ideas and concepts that you need to connect together to actually solve the problem? So in this particular problem, here's a representation of the kind of thoughts that should have occurred for someone who has learned binary search well, because in this problem, that's actually an optimal way to solve it. There's obviously a linear search where you can check through each index, and once you find, you can just iterate through the string. Once you find the index of the first one, you can just return it. So that's a linear O of n solution, very suboptimal. For some people, binary search might have come to mind. So the thought process could have been, well, I need to find or search or get something in a sequence. So this is one thought that fires. And for some other people, they might have recognized that the sequence is actually always sorted because it's zero or more zeros followed by, one or more zeros followed by one or more ones. So it's always zeros before ones. So it's a sorted sequence. So some people recognize that. And for some people in their brain, whenever they have the thought, I need to find something, they probably also have the thought, I need to find something in a sequence. They'll also have the thought, well, is that sequence sorted? For those people, once these two thoughts fire, this also fires. Consider using binary search. And this happens for some people in less than a second. It's really fast going on in the brain. And already they've jumped to the optimal solution. For some other people, it could be actually, they realize from the problem queue, they need to find or search or get some value in a sequence. And for some people, when they're already thinking of finding, they've already associated that with binary search. So they could have the thought, well, I need to find something in this sequence. Well, binary search is a good way to find because these two are chained together. And then they can then ask the question, well, is it sorted? So this could be the end product of these two thoughts firing. And I just treat them as collisions. So all minds aren't the same, but the key thing is once you have the collisions that allow you to recognize what the optimal pathway is, you should then note this down. We'll talk about how you do this. Note this down and recall this. And anytime you have another problem that requires the same chain of thought or the same underlying principles, you will, recognize the optimal approach. So this is another problem where you can use binary search. Again, we need to find something. it's not clear that we have a sequence, but if you actually try to solve this problem and lay out all the examples, you'll see that you're essentially trying out, okay, if x is 0, if x is 1, if x is 2, is x, you basically find yourself going through non-negative integers, and you're sort of doing that in a linear sequence. And someone might ask that, well, if I'm trying to find something in this sequence of values that meets a certain condition, why am I going linearly? If the sequence is sorted, which it is, why don't I try and use binary search, right? So the real value here in the system is then how do you store these associations so that you can recall them, so that they stick, so that anytime you need them, they come to mind very quickly. So the different tools you can use, well, I have some preferences, but it doesn't matter which tool you use. So there's Obsidian, there's Notion, there's Anki, flashcards, there's Google Sheets, there's Microsoft Excel. It doesn't matter which tool you use. The key thing is that you encode these. It's very concise. It could be a single line statement, just summarizing. It could just be find and an arrow pointing to sorted and an arrow pointing to binary search. It could be as simple as that, a one-liner, something you can review in less than a second. And your active recall also will take less than a second. So it's so quick. The spacing of a recall is very important. So you could have a baseline spacing where maybe you learn something on a certain day and you do a recall the next day. The next day is day 1, 2 days after day 3, day 7, day so on. So there's a spacing. You can see the intervals increasing. And what you find is, at some point you find that even after long-term time intervals, here we have roughly 16 days, you still are able to recall quickly and confidently. If you're really time pressed, which is pretty much most people that have interviews, you can do something that's day 1, day 2, day 5, day 10, right? Some people don't have 30 days to learn things. The idea is this is being applied to everything in your sort of recall list. So if you have like 100 ideas or 200 ideas, you can, recall them on day 1, day 2, day 5, day 10. And because each recall is very quick, it's low latency, it's not time consuming, you can actually recall quite a lot of information in a very short time interval. If each recall takes, for example, let's just say 2 seconds, and you've compiled, like, let's say 200 concepts or 200 associations. So if it takes 2 seconds for each recall, that's 200 times 2 is 400 seconds, which is 6 minutes. Let me be a bit more realistic. So let's say it actually takes you 5 seconds to do each recall. So you obviously have to read the prompt and then see if your brain recalls things accurately. So let's give each thing 5 seconds. Let's say we have 200 associations to recall. Each one takes 5 seconds. That's 1,000 seconds, which is 16 minutes. So you can see how you can actually cover quite a lot of information in a short time. So this is very valuable. The spacing really matters. And what this allows you to do is, so day 1 you learn, obviously as time passes your retention drops a bit. We've kind of spoken about this, the forgetting curve. But every time you do an active recall, you're bringing the retention back to 100%. Again, there's another dip. Same thing, you review it again, actively recall. And as you continue this pattern, eventually the dips are so tiny, you pretty much are at 100% retention. So the key is consistency. There's just an analogy with weightlifting. The key idea here, again, this is the forgetting curve, the natural deletion of information that happens. It's normal. But if you intervene with associative space repetition, every dip is just a natural forgetting that happens with the brain, and every rise is an active recall. And eventually, at some point, your retention level is pretty much 100%. It's stable. The information goes to long-term memory. You can recall it quickly, and because you did it in an associative way, and this is the key difference between what I'm discussing today, the system, and regular space repetition, because you did it in an associative way, you will find that whenever you need to apply that knowledge, it comes to mind. So I would actually say something that might sound a bit controversial, but I would recommend you actually abandon the idea of note-taking, writing things on paper. It's not scalable for when you're trying to learn a large amount of information. Focus on associatively representing the information and then recalling these. You don't need notes. I mean, you can draw things out when you're learning to help you sort of conceptualize things and understand them better, but you can throw those notes away. Just focus on the associations and what you're going to recall. This is more scalable to recall. If you have so many notes and it becomes like a book, how are you going to review all that? The second tip, and this is really powerful, during your study session. So whether you're someone who has 8 hours of studying a day, or maybe you just have 2 hours, regardless of who you are, whatever you do, the first thing you should do is your recall sessions. It's not going to take you more than 30 minutes every day. You can do it during your commute as well. It's very straightforward. And then you can do everything else you do, whether it's mock interviews or you're practicing problem or learning something new, whatever it is. So always do recall first. The reason for this is candidates I've observed tend to have a tendency to just always want to solve new problems. They feel like they're making progress. They feel like that's the grind. However, if you think about the accumulation of learning that's taking place, right? And let's assume you're being fully optimal and you're actually applying this associative spaced repetition we've discussed, right? Over time, what's going to happen? So what this bar shows is, if you pick this bar, the light blue shows a proportion of what you've learned in, let's say, a study session, let's say a day. And the dark blue just shows how much content you had to recall. As time passes and you keep learning more and more things, the amount of things you have to recall increases. It's a bigger proportion. If you learned like 300 things, at some point, you have 300 things you've learned and you're like trying to recall to make sure it sticks. On a certain day where you're learning a piece of information or learning one or two concepts, that's going to be much less than how much you've accumulated. So basically what I'm trying to say is, with the passage of time, you have more to forget than more to learn. So you have more to lose than to gain by not doing recall. So you should prioritize recall, make it a habit. And the other value is, because you're making these things stick and you're learning them, they will actually help you when you're learning things that actually are sort of related to them, or is tangentially related, right? If you found this video useful, smash that like button, subscribe. Be sure to check out the conditioning.com website, the conditioning platform. If you have interviews coming up, whether you're a production engineer, machine learning, data engineering, regular software engineer, whatever it is, we have coaches from big tech, FANG plus experienced engineers that are really good coaches that can help you with mock interviews and guide you to optimize your performance and get you interview ready so you can land those offers. We also have resources, so everything you need to do to get interview ready, actual questions asked, frequently asked questions, guidance on how you can strategically prepare for different companies. We also have general courses on system design, on being better with handling pressure. So many resources, and we're always adding more and updating it, so definitely explore. We've helped a lot of people land offers at all the big tech companies. We have coaches that can help you. We have testimonials here. You can check them out. Some of them are podcast episodes, so you can actually hear what the candidates have to say. You learn from there. So hopefully see you in the next video. Hopefully this was helpful. Hit that like button, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, show us some love.